I guess last thing for me, Conor McGregor was speaking yesterday, and he said maybe he deserves a title shot. Do you have any concern that he would step in, or maybe would you even want to fight him?
Honestly, I don't remember when this guy beat someone. He have to come back, beat someone, and let's go. Why not? I'm gonna smash him like easy. Not Bobby Green is gonna be hard for me more than for him.
Just tell me where, and that's it.
Did you not see me at the outside the bus now?
What's wrong with you?
Do something about it! Do something about it!
I'm gonna mow you.
You're a fake, lying rat. He sat and took your on that bus.
Hold on, no, freeze. Before this begins, do you hear it? That low, distant rumble? That's not thunder. That's a storm clawing its way closer. The kind that doesn't just drench the present, it rewrites the future. A storm that would brand an entire generation of lightweights and chain Islam Makhachev forever to one of the most notorious moments in Ultimate Fighting Championship history outside the cage. Conor McGregor, burning with fury, set his sights on Khabib Nurmagomedov and his team, not with words, but with intent. This wasn't hype. It wasn't promotion. It was a fuse lit in public, a vendetta detonating in the streets of Brooklyn. Metal clashed, windows shattered, lines were crossed that could never be redrawn. And in the shadows of that chaos stood Islam, young, rising, unproven, his career barely breathing as the fallout threatened to bury it alive. People whispered that he'd be finished before he even began, collateral damage from a war he didn't start. What unfolded wasn't just scandal, it was near annihilation, a violent ripple that tore through reputations, loyalties, futures. Everything teetered on the edge. But here's the twist: from that wreckage, something hardened, something sharpened. The storm didn't wash him away, it forged him. How that night of madness became the crucible for a future champion is a story too explosive to ignore.
One of the most anticipated nights in UFC history.
Tomorrow night, I'm gonna smash your boy, guys.
And there it is, the answer, cold and unflinching. I'm going to smash your boy. Not a promise, a threat carved in stone. This was never just about gold wrapped around a waist. It was personal, raw, surgical, and impossible to untangle from pride. The hatred had boiled over, spilling past press conferences and microphones, ignited by Conor McGregor's reckless assault and met head-on by Khabib Nurmagomedov's unbreakable loyalty to his Dagestani brothers. There was no backing down, no cooling off, only impact. This moment captures the suffocating tension strangling the air before UFC 229, a night that stopped being a sporting contest and mutated into something far bigger, a cultural flashpoint that blurred the line between spectacle and street war. The world felt it. Casual fans, critics, fighters, everyone sensed the collision coming. Fireworks were expected. An explosion was guaranteed. But no one truly grasped how far the shockwave would travel. This wasn't hype anymore. It was inevitability marching forward. Reputations trembled. Legacies hung in the balance. And in Khabib's shadow stood men like Islam Makhachev, watching closely, knowing that whatever detonated inside that octagon would ripple outward, branding allies and enemies alike. When the fuse finally burned out, nothing would look the same again. Careers would be rewritten in a single violent heartbeat.
In the brawl, Islam punches one of Conor's teammates at the back of the head. Another teammate, Zubair Octagon, punches Conor. Well, actually, everybody just starts punching Conor, and they would all face the consequences.
And just like that, the detonation. No warning, no mercy. The octagon didn't feel like a cage anymore. It felt like a battlefield split open under bright lights. Bodies surged, security scrambled, and in the eye of the chaos stood Islam Makhachev, no longer a bystander but a participant, throwing punches at a rival teammate as the madness spilled beyond the canvas. This wasn't background noise, this was history cracking in real time. For Islam, it was a crossroads disguised as chaos. He was still climbing, still earning his place, an ascending prospect with everything to lose. And in seconds, his name became welded to one of the most controversial brawls the Ultimate Fighting Championship had ever witnessed. The headlines wouldn't separate faces, they would fuse them together. This was bigger than Conor McGregor, bigger than Khabib Nurmagomedov. It was about loyalty drawn in blood, about brotherhood defended without hesitation, about the price paid when lines are crossed in front of the world. The consequences didn't end when the fists stopped flying, they echoed, threatening suspensions, reputations, futures. What unfolded that night wasn't just scandal, it was a White House-level incident in fight lore, a fracture point that would ripple through careers for years. And Islam, willingly or not, was now etched into that storm forever.
Would you take sanctions against him or Habib?
Of course, the guys who jumped in.
Dana White's words didn't echo, they detonated. A cold, public warning delivered without hesitation, a reminder that the fallout from that post-fight riot was immediate and merciless. The guys who jumped in will never fight here. Not frustration, not emotion, a verdict. This wasn't a fine or a suspension quietly handled behind closed doors. This was a guillotine hanging over careers, a threat sharp enough to end futures in a single stroke, futures that included the closest teammates of Islam Makhachev. For Islam, still carving his own ascent, still proving he belonged among contenders, this White House-level incident cast a suffocating shadow across everything he was building. He hadn't headlined. He hadn't claimed gold. Yet suddenly, forces far beyond the cage were deciding whether his path would even continue. Would Dana White make an example out of Khabib Nurmagomedov's entire circle? Would loyalty become liability? The questions tightened like a vice. Every interview, every commission ruling, every rumor felt like another crack in fragile ground. The stakes weren't just high, they were suffocating. Contracts, visas, reputations, legacies all hung suspended in uncertainty. You could feel it in the silence after the statement, in the anxious glances, in the waiting. Because when power speaks that clearly, careers don't just bend, they break. And for Islam and his brothers, the tension wasn't dramatic theater. It was survival balanced on a razor's edge.
We'll never fight here.
As a response, Khabib threatens to quit the UFC. He says, "If you decide to fire him, you should know that you lose me too. Don't forget to send me my broken contract, otherwise I'll break it myself." If Dana thought Khabib wouldn't stand up for his brothers,
this is where the unbreakable bond stops being a slogan and becomes undeniable. Khabib Nurmagomedov didn't hesitate, didn't flinch, his loyalty was absolute. Even if it meant walking away from a multi-million-dollar contract at the very summit of the sport, he was ready to abandon the throne itself for his brothers. That kind of resolve doesn't whisper, it roars. It exposed something deeper than rivalry, deeper than punishment. Dana White misjudged the gravity of that connection, underestimated the steel running through the familial ties forged in Dagestan. This was never about one man's title defense or one night's chaos. It was about identity stitched together through years of sacrifice, discipline, and shared struggle. After the fallout from that White House-level eruption under the banner of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, when disciplinary threats loomed and careers hung in limbo, Khabib's defiance cut through the noise. He drew a line the organization couldn't intimidate him across. Protecting his own wasn't a negotiation tactic, it was instinct. If they fell, he would fall with them. If they were banned, he would walk. In that moment, the world saw the truth. Gold was temporary, contracts were replaceable, but brotherhood was permanent. And no matter the cost to his own legacy, he would shield his circle first, even if it meant burning everything else down behind him.
because he didn't know how deep that bond goes.
This guy grew up in front of my eyes.
Khabib Nurmagomedov's words don't just explain the loyalty, they expose its foundation. This guy grew up in front of my eyes. That isn't nostalgia. That's ownership of shared history. This wasn't a teammate rotated through camps or a friend made under bright lights. This was blood without biology, family without paperwork, a bond hardened long before fame ever arrived. Understanding that is the key to everything that followed. When the chaos erupted after the Conor McGregor incident, when accusations flew and punishments loomed, Khabib's reaction wasn't strategic or rehearsed. It was reflex. Years of shared struggle, brutal training sessions, silent sacrifices, victories earned the hard way. They forged something unbreakable between him and Islam Makhachev and the rest of their circle. You don't abandon that when pressure hits. You defend it. Instantly. The outside world saw headlines and suspensions. They saw a post-fight riot framed under the banner of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. But from inside that brotherhood, it wasn't scandal, it was a test. A ruthless public examination of allegiance. And in that moment, the narrative shifted. What looked like a reckless eruption became something heavier, something personal. Not just fists and fury, but loyalty under fire. It transformed the so-called White House-level spectacle from a simple brawl into a defining trial of brotherhood, where walking away would have been easier, but unthinkable.
21 years ago.
I met Khabib and his father. We went to the same school with Khabib.
And he was younger than me, like 3 years.
I wanted to see where he's trained.
This clip from Islam Makhachev doesn't just show nostalgia, it reveals an origin story written long before the spotlight. Meeting Khabib Nurmagomedov and his legendary father Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov at such a young age wasn't coincidence. It felt like fate tightening its grip early. They didn't just train together, they grew up side by side, sweating through brutal sessions, walking to school, absorbing lessons that went far beyond wrestling mats. This wasn't a partnership formed for cameras or contracts. It was childhood forged into commitment. Those formative years, sharpened by discipline and guided by Abdulmanap's relentless standards, built something harder than ambition, something immovable. A bond tempered like steel, tested daily, strengthened in silence. That foundation would quietly become the bedrock beneath championships, beneath fame, beneath every headline that followed. So when chaos detonated during that White House-level eruption involving Conor McGregor, when the world reduced everything to a viral riot under the banner of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, outsiders saw scandal. But inside that circle, the reaction was inevitable. Khabib's loyalty to Islam and their teammates didn't waver because it couldn't. It had been built over decades through childhood, hardship, sacrifice, and shared dreams whispered long before arenas roared their names. What looked impulsive to critics was, in truth, the culmination of years of brotherhood. A reflex born from history. A promise kept without hesitation.
Father favorite student. For my father like his son.
There it is, straight from Khabib Nurmagomedov himself. Islam was never just a student. To Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, Nurmagomedov, he was like a son. That distinction changes everything. Abdulmanap wasn't merely a coach drilling techniques into young fighters. He was a patriarch, the architect of a dynasty, the stern but loving compass guiding their every step. For Islam Makhachev to be regarded as his favorite student, treated with the affection and expectation reserved for family, elevates their connection beyond mentorship into something almost sacred. This wasn't about gym loyalty or competitive ambition. It was lineage, legacy, blood without bloodlines. That paternal bond carried weight, emotional, cultural, spiritual. So when the White House-level chaos erupted around the incident involving Conor McGregor under the bright lights of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, it struck far deeper than headlines suggested. It wasn't just an attack on teammates or a rivalry spilling over. It felt like disrespect toward a father figure, toward everything Abdulmanap had built brick by brick. In that instant, Khabib's response wasn't fueled by ego or promotion, it was protection. Protection of his extended family. Protection of a name. Protection of a legacy that demanded to be defended at any cost. When you understand that, the reaction stops looking impulsive and starts looking inevitable. It was never just business. It was personal to the core.
At that point, Islam doesn't really believe in himself.
How I'm gonna be champion, because I'm from Russia. At that moment, we don't have like many fighters, many champions from Russia. I don't believe that time.
When they signed me, it was 11 years.
Hearing Islam Makhachev speak so openly about those early moments of doubt, questioning his own path from Russia to the pinnacle of the sport, pulls back the curtain on a vulnerability few saw. This was before the Dagestani dominance that now commands every lightweight discussion, a time when even a fighter of his talent wrestled with belief in himself. Every setback, every harsh session, every whispered critique threatened to chip away at his fragile confidence. That makes the unwavering faith of Khabib Nurmagomedov Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov Conor McGregor a spectacle of chaos that didn't just shock the world, it threatened to derail a career still finding its footing. Every punch thrown, every headline screaming scandal could have shattered Islam's fragile resolve, leaving him to question himself and his choices all over again. But what emerges from his reflection is something extraordinary: resilience. Not the flashy, celebrated kind, but the quiet, iron-willed persistence of someone tempered by doubt, discipline, and the relentless faith of mentors and brothers. That resilience, born in the shadows of uncertainty and chaos, is what ultimately allowed him to survive the storm and carve the path toward greatness.
Khabib and Islam established themselves in the UFC. The plan of Abdulmanap becomes clear.
He told me, when you're gonna finish, Islam have to come. Like you finish and Islam come, it's have to be like on the same time.
When Khabib retired, you have to take this belt.
This is the master plan, laid bare for those who can see it. Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov's vision was sharp, almost surgical. Khabib Nurmagomedov dominates, claims his reign, then Islam immediately rises to inherit the mantle, a deliberate, calculated passing of the torch, a blueprint for Dagestani supremacy etched in strategy and sweat. Every detail mattered, every fight a stepping stone, but that blueprint didn't survive unscathed. The White House-level chaos with Conor McGregor.
Very hard time, not just for me, for all team.
Today, I want to say it was my last fight.
Khabib's retirement hit like a thunderclap, raw, unfiltered, leaving the MMA world suspended in grief and disbelief. Yet beneath the shock lurked a sinister pivot for Islam Makhachev. With Khabib stepping off the stage, the weight of Abdulmanap's prophecy didn't just loom, it slammed down squarely on Islam's shoulders, twisting destiny into a knife-edge challenge. The torch didn't merely pass, it landed with a jolt, jagged and unforgiving, leaving Islam exposed to the world's unrelenting gaze. The White House encounter with Conor had already peeled back the veneer of calm, revealing the searing scrutiny and pressure that now coiled around him like a predator. Without his undefeated mentor breathing fire alongside him, Islam faced a void where guidance had once lived, a chilling emptiness that demanded he seize the legacy alone. Every step forward now carried the electric tension of expectation and the shadow of what had been, each fight a pulse of suspense where triumph and collapse balanced on the same knife's edge. The mantle he inherited was no longer ceremonial, it was a gauntlet, bristling with challenge, danger, and the unspoken threat of failure, and the path forward twisted into uncertainties he could neither predict nor control, leaving him poised between legacy and oblivion, forced to navigate a world that suddenly felt darker, sharper, and far more merciless than ever before.
Without father, my mind said to me, you have to continue your father's legacy.
There it was, raw and undeniable, the driving force sharpened by absence. Without his father, Khabib felt an urgent, almost suffocating need to ensure the legacy didn't fracture under time or fate. This had transcended personal glory. It had become a solemn, relentless duty to honor Abdulmanap's life, his vision, and every whispered lesson that had once shaped a champion. And who could bear that weight more fittingly than Islam, the man his father had embraced as a son, a surrogate heir to a carefully forged destiny? The White House encounter with Conor had cracked open their composure, exposing nerves, testing mettle, yet each tense moment had only welded their bond tighter, etching clarity into Khabib's purpose. Post-retirement, his mission was no longer to fight in the octagon but to navigate the shadows of expectation, to shepherd Islam toward the championship with a precision born of love, loyalty, and the unyielding weight of family ties. Every decision, every word, every calculated push now carried the pulse of prophecy, a shared destiny demanding fulfillment. In the quiet aftermath, the world might see only fighters and titles, but beneath it all surged a current of profound obligation and obsession, a relentless drive to mold Islam into the embodiment of a legacy, one that Khabib could no longer fight for himself but could ignite, steer, and preserve with every ounce of his post-retirement vigilance and relentless strategic guidance.
He helped me always, like his father.
When I need help, he helped me. Now is my turn.
You be in his corner the whole time? You're going to see through his career?
Of course, I'm gonna be here. I have to finish what my father began.
After all this, my mind is changed, and I know.
This was the ultimate vow, etched in sweat and unspoken ferocity. Khabib, the undefeated titan, surrendering the roar of the octagon to become the relentless shadow guiding Islam. Every moment of his post-fight life was now devoted to cornering, molding, and steering a legacy that had become bigger than titles, bigger than fame. It was a silent testament to a brotherhood forged in fire and to the sacred promise made to Abdulmanap, a covenant of blood and honor that demanded fulfillment. That notorious White House confrontation with Conor, where Islam had stood shoulder to shoulder with Khabib against a storm of provocation, had cemented this bond in ways no victory could, a crucible of shared adversity, tension, and unflinching loyalty. It transcended mere training. It was a living, breathing alliance, a mission stitched together by danger and ambition, where each punch, each strategy, each whispered counsel carried the weight of destiny. Now, as Khabib embraced the mantle of full-time mentor, he armed Islam with every tool, every insight, and every ounce of unwavering support, ensuring the dream of championship glory was not just imagined but inexorably, mercilessly pursued. In the shadow of his own retirement, Khabib's guidance became both sword and shield, a relentless force propelling Islam forward while echoing the legacy of a man who could no longer fight, yet demanded the world see their shared triumph realized.
Somebody say I'm Islam like almost same like Khabib. I agree with this. I wanna be like Khabib.
I'm older brother, I have to prove them.
Islam's declaration, that he aspires to mirror Khabib even under crushing pressure and endless comparisons, reveals a resolve both fearless and deliberate, a conscious clutching of a legacy that could swallow the unprepared. He perceives the Khabib 2.0 mantle not as a weight dragging him down, but as a jagged, electrified path toward true greatness, each step charged with expectation and peril. Every trial, every bruising moment, especially the White House confrontation with Conor, has carved him into something sharper than talent alone, a fighter tempered by loyalty, hardened by obligation, and fiercely protective of a heritage that demands reverence and precision. Islam doesn't merely follow footprints, he stalks them with intent, learning the cadence of a legend while threading his own identity through the shadow of another's glory. Every strike he practices, every strategy he absorbs, pulses with the duality of mentorship and challenge, a constant reminder that greatness is earned in fire and friction. The legacy he embraces is alive, a demanding, restless force that shapes his decisions, his focus, and the very way he moves in the octagon, ensuring that he becomes more than a successor, he becomes an extension of a vision that refuses to fade, a living testament to Khabib's influence and the enduring spirit of a team bound by unbreakable loyalty and uncompromising ambition.